Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Hey Melissa and hello Carnivore Collective. Very, very sorry that I couldn't be there for that amazing day, the very first Carnivore Collective. I'm sure it's going to be monumental. I'm sure the speakers are going to be fantastic, and I'm very disappointed that I couldn't be there today, but next year I'll absolutely be there. But you know, things get in the way, schedules get in the way, and unfortunately I couldn't fly back to Australia from Thailand to be there, but next year I will absolutely be there. So, absolutely fantastic, Carnivore Collective, Tinnitus. Okay, so for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Boehm. I run a company called Silence Tinnitus. Now, I've done that for about 6 years now. It's totally online, and I help people from all over the world, from politicians that you probably know to actors on the big screen to everyone from all walks of life, no matter their gender, no matter their age, no matter their race, no matter their location, their socioeconomic status. All these different things, I help all these different people. And the foundation of what I do is, of course, you know, helping people holistically, looking at the causes, looking at the things that, you know, what's the root cause of tinnitus? I call it tinnitus. You can call it tinnitus. It's like I say, you know, us Australians, we say water. The Americans say water. It's a dialect thing. It's up to you. But I really look at the foundation of what it is that's really causing and contributing to people's tinnitus, hyperacusis, pulsatile tinnitus, vertigo, Meniere's disease, and even visual snare eustachian tube dysfunction, all these different things. But whenever I take on a new client, and I have many, it always starts with the foundation of eating more meat. And I'm sure you've had some amazing speeches already, and hopefully you're going to have some more throughout the day as well. And again, I wish I could be there, but I'm just so happy that I could send in my video today and really talk about what it is that I've been doing for all these years, and how meat is really the foundation of what I do. To really show people that when doctors, whether it's a nutritionist or a psychiatrist, psychologist, neurologist, hematologist, you know, whatever ologist, right? But you put it in there, whatever ologist you want. What do they always say? They either say one of two things. They say, diet really doesn't have that much of an impact, no matter what the chronic issue is, which is crazy. Or they say, oh yeah, you know, just avoid the alcohol, avoid the fast food, but try and have a balanced diet. Which is a really weird thing to say, because you wouldn't give a koala a balanced diet, you wouldn't give a wallaby a balanced diet, you wouldn't give an emu a balanced diet, but for some reason, when it comes to Homo sapiens, yeah, just have a bit of this, bit of that. It's like a pick and mix. If a bit of this, but it's absolute madness. It's madness, and this lends to a term that otolaryngologists, an ENT, ear, nose and throat doctor, otolaryngologist, a very common term that they use, which is, you know, a client, well, their patient, my client, I'm not a doctor, their patient, walks into their office, has an audiogram, and the ENT goes, yeah, you know, there's some high frequency hearing loss, a bit of this, a bit of that, maybe it's this, who knows? But what they say is always very similar, and it's something to the effect of, well, sorry, insert patient's name here, you have what we call in the biz idiopathic subjective tinnitus, which is, I mean, strap your fucking intellectual seatbelt in for this one. You ready for this? Excuse my French, but I'm trying to prove a point. This is this is madness. It's madness. Essentially, you have someone who, my regular demographic is 40 to 60-year-old men and women. And so you have somebody who's never even heard the word tinnitus before. And all of a sudden they took a medication, or they had a loud noise exposure, or they were stressed out, or they had a neck injury, or they this or that, the other thing. Or who knows, maybe it just came on one day. And they never used to have this symptom, and now they have it, to the point where they had to book an appointment and wait 2 months and pay hundreds of dollars and get a referral from their GP to see a specialist and so on and so forth. And that specialist, who's had 8 years in training, couple of $100,000 in debt, who's supposed to be the be-all and end-all with their degree framed in mahogany behind their desk and all this expensive equipment and blah, it goes on and on and on and on. They say, well, it just came from nowhere. There was nothing, and then there was something. So apparently, most people's tinnitus is the Big Bang. It's the Big Bang. It's unbelievable. So What we're going to do now is, I've just given you a little bit of an introduction as to who I am and what I do, just a very little introduction. And I'm trying to keep this video, around the 20-minute mark so you can get to all the fantastic speakers and all the amazing people. And I'm sure you're going to do some great networking. I really hope you have a good time because I intend to be there next year. And I really hope to see all of you next year there as well, because I'm sure Melissa is going to put on a fantastic conference. I'm very confident she will. It's going to be fabulous. I'll be there next year. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to my computer. I'm going to give you a presentation with some slides that I've prepared. I'll be doing a voiceover, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive into tinnitus, what causes it, the solutions that I provide, and really how what you put in your mouth has such a profound effect. And I think it's this sort of mismatch, that we have between Australian practitioners and specialists being really taught absolutely nothing pertaining to diet. I mean, when you speak to even psychologists, the area of nutrition is unbelievably outside of their purview, meaning it doesn't really come under their area of expertise to know what you should be eating. They think coffee's okay. They think alcohol is okay. Sugar is okay for you. Or if you're feeling depressed, well, let's not analyze your life. Let's decide what the best sort of lorazepam or whatever medication or sleep medication, amitriptyline or Zoloft or Xanax or Ambien or that, all these different things with complicated names and even worse side effects. One of those side effects, by the way, being tinnitus. So that's enough the introduction. Let's go over to my computer and I'll show you how to fix tinnitus, okay, using diet, and also why tinnitus, if you're in the audience now and you have tinnitus, just know tinnitus is not for life. See you there. Okay, so welcome to my presentation for the Carnivore Collective. Very, very excited to share this information with you, all you lovely people there in the audience. So what I'm going to be speaking about specifically today is, obviously, as you can see in the name, tinnitus and the carnivore diet, okay? So there are many different causes of tinnitus, and when I say tinnitus, I'm speaking of tinnitus, pulse-style tinnitus, hyperacusis, vertigo, Meniere's disease, and in a lot of cases, visual snow. I've reversed all those conditions in countless people. There are certain techniques, but the foundation is the carnivore diet. So removing most plants or all plants. I know the carnivore diet is cutting out all plants, but I do really strongly suggest to all of my clients and anyone there in the audience who might be suffering from, tinnitus, hearing loss, pulsatile tinnitus, and all the aforementioned symptoms. The foundation of fixing it, from my experience of 10 years in this field, not a doctor, but experience in this field, from having tinnitus and hyperacusis for 4 years, fixing it myself with dietary intervention alongside other steps, and fixing it in countless other people. As it stands at the moment, I do have the most testimonials of 100% reversed tinnitus compared to any other person on earth. So I definitely have something to say when it comes to tinnitus and what to eat. Sorry, it's not 6, it's actually 4. I condensed it down because I've got a lot to say, but I'm really trying to get it into as tight of a presentation as I can, because I know you're going to have some amazing speakers, a very busy day. So let's get into it. So section 1 is going to be what causes tinnitus. Section 2 is salicylate. We're going to get into what that is. Perhaps some of you are already familiar with this plant defense mechanism. Section 3 is going to be mitochondria, cells, and meat. Excuse me. And section 4 is failing of modern otolaryngology. So for those of you who don't know, otolaryngology is the field of ear, nose, and throat. An otolaryngologist is, if you go and see an ENT, if you go to a general practitioner and you say, I have ringing in my ears, I have an issue with my ears, I have an infection in my ears, something like that, they will, of course, refer you to a specialist known as an ENT. The actual name is an otolaryngologist. So before we get into these sections, I just want to give you some numbers here regarding the impact that tinnitus is having on Australia, rather, and why this is such a serious issue. And it's quite amazing, actually. When I meet people, I currently live in Thailand, excuse me, and I'll talk to people, what do you do? What do you do? And I got to say, about 7 out of 10 people, I say, I help people with tinnitus. And they go, I've got that really bad. I would say, the rate at which people people are suffering with tinnitus, the rate at which people are contracting it, is actually growing. So the number of people with tinnitus is actually growing, and that's due to levels. There's many different things go into it, but dietary problems, stress, lack of exercise, vaccinations. COVID vaccinations, especially, that caused one of the biggest spikes in tinnitus I've ever seen. But we're going to talk about that in this presentation and how meat ties into it. So 15 to 20% of Australians experience tinnitus to a level they claim to be distressing. That's a number from Better Hearing Australia. 2% of those Australians have tinnitus so loud that it is ruining their lives. That's from australia.org.au. And that means that, they've considered suicide. And unfortunately, people do kill themselves from this condition. And that bears itself out in the statistics and the numbers shown in, from countries like Australia, Germany, France, places all over the world, New Zealand, unfortunately. It's very depressing. So I think that's why it's so important for people to know that there is actually a way that you can fix it. You don't have to live with tinnitus. It isn't for life. And most of what your otolaryngologist is telling you about your situation with tinnitus is just plain not true. Out of those people, that 2% who have suicidal ideations, and these people have it so bad they turn to drugs and alcohol to deal with it, which was me back in the day when I had tinnitus and hyperacusis. I turned to substances to deal with it because there's no help. You go to tinnitus forums, you go to the internet, you go to doctor, you go to the people who are supposed to help you. And not only do they not have any solution, but unfortunately, a lot of the specialists just really don't seem to care. So it's quite distressing. So these are just some people. I have so many videos and so many people from famous actors that you would know in Hollywood, from America, politicians, business moguls, all these different people, to just standard people like you or I. These are just a couple of people from all over the world, people who don't even speak English, who get the course translated, my advice translated, and they go, I have to eat a lot of steak. What is this? Like my doctor tells me steak causes, cancer and atherosclerosis, and doesn't it raise cholesterol? Isn't high cholesterol bad for you? And LDL and HDL, it's just, a lot of what's probably you've heard already today and are going to hear is a lot to do with, just realizing that, wow, we were lied to. You guys probably know the story of Ansel Keys and how, even the most sophisticated cardiologists at the most prestigious universities and medical institutions, they don't know shit. They just don't. It's absolutely insane. So for those of you with tinnitus, we are getting to those 4 points I was speaking about, but I want to get as much in as possible as well. So if you have tinnitus now, just a couple of things. The first step to getting silence is hope. And so I just want to put these things to you right now quickly. So the following points are of barely no concern in regards to obtaining silence. So let me just read out what these things are. So some people would think, oh, well, maybe I have, I'm different and my tinnitus is for life because it was caused by noise trauma, or it was caused by stress, or it was caused by a vaccination, or it was caused by a perforated eardrum, it was caused by eustachian tube dysfunction, it was caused by an allergy, it was caused by a vaccine, that goes on and on and on. It doesn't matter. It's fixable. Okay. Regardless of the severity, even if your tinnitus is so loud you can't even hear yourself think, it's still fixable. Whether or not you've had your tinnitus for 2 months or 20 years, there is a myth, or rather a lie, going around that, well, once you've had your tinnitus for 2 years, it's ingrained in your neural pathways and it's permanent. Absolute BS. No truth. I've had people who've had, if you see this lady in the middle down the bottom, her name is Rena from New York, and I believe her age is about, God, you should never guess a woman's age, but if I remember correctly, about 50 years old or 45 years old, sorry, Rena, and she had tinnitus from since she was born. And I've had many people like that who've had it for decades and decades. So absolute nonsense. Just another thing that's just a myth. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. And also the age of a person. It doesn't matter if you're 18. Doesn't matter if you're 70. I treat people. Well, I'm not a doctor. I shouldn't say treat, but I help people. And the foundation is eating more meat. So what causes tinnitus? Section 1. So the many causes of tinnitus that I have seen. And I just want to preface this by saying, no matter the cause, eating sufficient meat is a large part of fixing tinnitus. It really is the foundation. It plays a big role. It plays a big, big role. So Dietary issues can definitely contribute to tinnitus. Veganism is, I just think it's a religion. It's an ideology. It's a religion. It's a bad idea. It's a silly thing to do. It's dangerous. It's not sustainable. It's unhealthy. And, I don't think that people should be going online and telling other people to do it. I mean, sure, freedom of speech, but surely there must be a line. Fast food, that'll do it. The deuterium, the heavy water and all that stuff, the sugar, the nonsense that's in that food it's toxic. Alcohol, that's quite obvious as neurotoxin. Coffee, don't believe the nonsense. Coffee is not good for you. It's usually full of mold. It wrecks your sleep. It dehydrates your brain by about 40% within 30 minutes. It's horrific. Let's get through these. I'll just pick a few of these. Ototoxic medications, noise trauma, stress, posture issues, and thyroid hormones, all that sort of stuff as well. So these are really the main causes. There's many. I've had clients who've been electrocuted, heroin usage, STDs, I've had clients, everything and everything else, lack of sleep, everything. So so these are the contributing factors. Okay, and this is all my opinion. And the reason I'm, sharing this with you today is because it works. Okay, it really works. Okay, so any of you in the audience who are a neurologist or you're familiar with how the brain functions, okay, there is something called central gain. So let's go through this. So this is something that I find very, very interesting about the ear. Well, rather about Earth. You ready? The world around us makes zero noise. I don't sound like this. When I click my fingers, okay, when I tap the table, it doesn't sound like this. There is no such thing fundamentally of what we perceive it to be as sound. It is merely vibrational energy passing through the air, okay? It is a movement. It is a vibrational energy. It hits your outer ear, goes down the ear canal, hits the tympanic membrane, hits the three little bones, the smallest bones in the body. They're called the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. The stapes is like a piston. It hits the cochlea, affects the lymphatic sacs, okay? Goes down, creates an electronic process where the vibration is converted into electricity, goes into your brain, and your brain tells you three things. So I really glossed over that and made it very, very simple. I'm trying to make this as quick as possible. But your ear has a responsibility to encode a message and pass it on to your brain, and it needs to tell your brain three things. It needs to tell it, first of all, the pitch. What does it sound like? Is your voice really high, like this, or is it low, lower? And what is the volume? Is it quiet, like this, or is it much louder? And also, which direction is it coming from? There's different processes involved in this, such as ITD, which is interaural time difference, which is your eardrums will measure the difference in microseconds to be able to perceive, it hit your right eardrum at this time and your left eardrum at that time. Therefore, it's kind of in front of you, but a little bit to the right. It'll do many, many different things. It'll measure the vibration and then oscilles to determine the volume of it. All these really, really interesting things, okay? But if you have an issue with that encoding process, okay, then it's not going to be able to be passed to the brain properly, and your brain is not going to be able to interpret this. There are many different things that go into this. For example, in order to turn that vibration into an electronic signal, there's a couple of things that have to happen. First of all, there needs to be a transformation. This transformation is called mechano-electrical transduction. Now, what does it do? Well, the explanation is in the name. Mechano-electrical. Mechanical, electrical. It's a transformation that turns vibration into an electronic signal, okay? And that electronic signal, is passed via a neurotransmitter to your vestibular cochlear nerve and into your brain. Now, that requires a lot of what's called adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy of the body. It's very, very taxing. Inadequate amounts ends up in an encoding error. It goes to your brain, and your brain can't decipher it. Your brain can't really determine how loud it is, where it's coming from, what it sounds like. And so essentially what it does is it turns up the gain. Now, for any of you who are a musician, you would know that if you're playing guitar, you have a an amplifier with a gain control and a volume control. And on your guitar, you have a volume control too. Now, if you turn the volume control down on your guitar and you play, it's not going to be very loud coming out of the amp. But if you turn the gain up on your amp, it's going to get louder, but you're going to get this sort of buzzing, humming sound. Now, essentially, my belief is that's what's really happening here, and that's what is really contributing to the tinnitus, and that's what the manifestation of tinnitus is. That's what an otolaryngologist will call idiopathic subjective tinnitus. Idiopathic, for those of you who don't know, is the dumbest word ever. It means it came from nowhere. Something came from nothing. So essentially, your tinnitus is like the Big Bang. The Big Bang Theory. There was nothing and then there was something. All right, amen. Fantastic. But it makes no sense. You can't have a patient presenting to you who's 45 years old and didn't even know the word tinnitus and got a cold and an ear infection, and all of a sudden they have tinnitus, and you're going to tell them it's idiopathic. Spare me. It's nonsense, okay? So that's essentially the summary of what's going on there. Okay, so let's get a little bit more into salicylate. Okay, danger, toxic chemicals. Okay, let's get into salicylate. This is a plant defense chemical. So salicylate is a defense molecule created by plants to kill the insects attempting to eat it, right? It also, as it happens, is highly ototoxic. Oto means ear. Like you go and see an otolaryngologist, they'll use an otoscope to look into your ear. You might see a neuro-otologist, okay, so on and so forth. Salicylate is actually used in studies with rats to induce tinnitus. So it's wild to me that you would go and see an ENT and or a doctor rather, anyone really, anyone who's medically trained, whatever that means these days, and you go and see a doctor and you'll say, well, you know, does lifestyle do anything? Will lifestyle change anything? And they'll say to you, no, the research bears out that lifestyle has absolutely no impact on tinnitus, so you should just try and live your life with tinnitus, and you should habituate to the noise and eat whatever you want and live your life. And they'll give you some brochure with like some happy couple on there who's having a great time, and it's like, tinnitus, you know, the beginning is just not the end, or what's some horrible thing. And it's like, it's almost like palliative care, but you're like 35. It's horrific. It's so bad. And, you know, they just don't seem to care. Whereas there is clear evidence showing that salicylate, well, in rats, obviously, I know it's not transferable 100% to humans. Salicylate's literally used to induce tinnitus within rats. And the thing is, I do this with my human clients, because I've got no rat clients, not yet. I do this with my human clients, and I get rid of salicylate, and it has a seriously positive impact regarding reducing their tinnitus, a noise sensitivity especially. So hyperacusis, which is a spike in the sound, noxacusis, which is a pain in the ear, certain sensitivities to certain noises, and it really works, cutting out plants. You know, for anyone with tinnitus, I'm not saying you have to go 100% carnivore. Some people do have to do that. But for everyone, you should really be cutting out plants. And I have a phrase that I use, and perhaps someone else might have said it already, and that's fine. But the phrase that I use is, meat is food and plants are medicine. Because plants do amazing things. Plants can kill parasites, they can kill mold, they can help the kidneys, they can get rid of gallstones. Meat can't do that, as far as I know. But we're using it inappropriately. We're just eating a whole bunch of medicine and not getting the right proteins and not getting the right amino acid profile. It's just a mess. So what we're going to do now is we're going to watch a story of one of my clients, Dan. So Dan went to a wedding. He got noise trauma induced tinnitus from a speaker. He sat too close to a speaker. All the ENTs told him he couldn't do anything. He had it for 2 years. It was getting worse. He found me and I said, you know, follow my advice, cut out salicylate. And well, now his tinnitus is completely gone. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, I'm a musician, or I'm an army veteran, or I had a firecracker go off in my ear on the 4th of July, and my ear is ringing, and my ENT told me that the little cells in my ears, the hair cells are broken. They probably use an audiogram to determine that your hair cells are broken, which is an absolutely inappropriate diagnostic tool regarding, you know, telling a patient that their hair cells are broken. It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's get into the video, and then I'll see you on the other side.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan, and I am a Liam Boehm follower, as you are as well. And I want to talk to you today about something called salicylates, which is something that I had never heard of and was not familiar with at all until about 3 to 4 weeks ago, I read that a sensitivity to salicylates could cause tinnitus. So that sort of piqued my interest, since I had tinnitus for about 3 years at that point. And what I read when I looked at the food list was that the foods that were the highest in salicylates were the ones that I had been eating in massive quantities, and that I was drawn to for some reason, never knowing that they had anything in common. Putting two and two together, I started thinking, if these can cause tinnitus and I'm eating massive quantities of these foods, that might just make a difference if I cut those out. So I did. I cut them out for about 2 weeks. And at that point, my tinnitus level went from about a 5 or a 6 down to between a 0 and 2. So my tinnitus is essentially gone now. Having said that, it wasn't just the salicylates that made it go away. I had been following Liam for maybe 6 months, and I was doing all the things he recommended, but I didn't start out doing them very strictly. That some people have gotten results faster, and I don't doubt that, because they may have gone very strictly on a carnivore diet, eating nothing but meat, eggs, and broth. And then, of course, the other things he suggests, the intermittent fasting, or even longer fasts if you can do that, and cold showers, exercise, sleep, and sun. All of those are important. So I consider it to be essentially gone, and I consider this problem to be solved. I consider this chapter now to be closed in my life, and I want no further part of it. And hopefully you can get to that point as well.
Okay. Mitochondria, cells, and meat. Now, I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit quickly, because I don't want to take up too much time here. So let's do it. No matter the cause, meat is the foundation of the solution, pertaining obviously specifically to the eradication of tinnitus. I already spoken about this, but mechanoelectrical transduction. In order for our ears to convert vibration into electricity, we need sufficient levels of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. ATP is a byproduct of the electron chain transport process, which happens inside of our mitochondria between the membranes. Nutrients, here's an interesting thing. Your electrons inside your mitochondria between the membranes need to actually pass through a series of processes in order for ATP to get created. And sometimes some of the electrons don't make it, interestingly enough. So here's an interesting thing. Nutrients derived from plants are more likely to lead to electron leakage, okay? Not completing that process, whereas nutrients from animal sources are not. And by the way, when an electron fails this process, it turns into a free radical, which is inflammatory. It goes around stripping electrons from other cells. It's a bad idea. Yet again, another reason: reduce the plant intake, increase the meat intake, okay? Cellular membranes. The nerves that carry the electric signals from the ear to brain are surrounded by a myelin sheath, which is made up of about 70 to 80% cholesterol. Any negative impact on these can potentially cause a breakdown of the messages between the ear and brain, and it causes our brains to turn up the central gain, which is essentially tinnitus, okay? So the nerves, the vestibular cochlear nerve that connects your cochlea to your brain, again, is surrounded by a protective myelin sheath, which is mostly cholesterol. And if you don't have enough cholesterol, yes, your liver makes cholesterol, your cells make cholesterol, but you still need it exogenously. Fatty meats, eggs, so on and so forth. And guess what? You don't get cholesterol from cabbage. Neurotransmitters, this one's important. At the base of your cochlea, that's plural for cochlea, it uses primarily a neurotransmitter called glutamate. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's synthesized from glucose and amino acids. So again, I'm sure you guys know this, but you can get glucose from animal products. Your liver will go through a process called gluconeogenesis, and it will convert animal products in your liver to glucose. Not too much glucose, not enough glucose, but exactly the appropriate amount that you need. Okay? So this allows for a more robust and plentiful creation of glutamate compared to a mixed diet, and especially compared to a vegan diet. So again, you want your ears to function, eat meat. And this is basic stuff. I have a list of about 100 different reasons why anybody with tinnitus should be eating meat. It's clear as day. I mean, come on. Final one, the brain takes the electronic signal from the ears and decodes those 3 points we spoke about. So how loud something is, what pitch it is, and what direction it's coming from. And things such as neural inflammation, malfunction of the lymphatic system, which is the drainage system in the brain, toxicity, and inadequate minerals can lead to neurological issues. So again, just eat meat, keep it clean, keep your brain healthy, so on and so forth. Number 4, failings of modern otolaryngology. So we're coming to the end here, but I just really want to point out one thing. I've never, ever, in all my years of doing this, and this goes for myself too, I have never had a good experience, unfortunately, with an ENT. And here's the thing. Some of them actually genuinely care. But I have a point that I make, and I'll make it here to everyone in this room, which is that you have 2 kinds of ENTs. You have an ENT who cares about the client, about the patient, and you have an ENT who doesn't care. And believe me, they both exist. But here's the thing. The end result from both of those ENTs is going to be exactly the same. Whether the ENT compares or not, it really doesn't have that much of a bearing on your health outcome. You know why? Because their education was fundamentally exactly the same. They had the same training, they think the same things, they give you the same diagnosis and prognosis, and it's no help. So I'm going to go through a couple of things here, and I'm going to try and take the emotional power away from ENT, so that if you have an ENT appointment coming up and they give you horrible news, you can think to yourself, well, it's okay because you haven't got a fucking clue. Sorry for my language, but it's true. It's true. Okay. Audiograms. Conducting an audiogram on a patient presenting with tinnitus in order to look for hearing loss is, in my opinion, is at worst a scam and is at best malpractice. And I mean that. You cannot determine hearing loss on a patient with tinnitus using an audiogram. Interference, yes. Hearing loss, no. So maybe you've had this, you have tinnitus, you go to an ENT or an audiologist, you get an audiogram. For those of you who don't know, you're sitting in a soundproof booth with headphones on, a button in the right hand, a button in the left. And they're going to play a series of noises in your right ear and your left ear randomly. And you are supposed to click the corresponding button, the right ear, right hand, left ear, left hand, to whatever the noise is coming from. It might sound like a ooh or a shh, whatever it is. Varying in volumes. Now, eventually, because of your tinnitus, not your hearing loss, because of your tinnitus will be so loud compared to some of the lighter sounds that you will not be able to hear it, and you will miss it, and you will not click the button. Okay. Then you go back into the office. They show you the audiogram. They show you the spec. They give you the lineup of hearing, and they say, "You've got hearing loss right here. That's broken stereocilia. It's for life. You need to give me $2,500 for earpieces." Does that not sound like a scam? It isn't hearing loss. And I have had so many clients who have that done. They find me. I help them. It takes about 6 months to 8 months, sometimes a year, to get rid of their tinnitus. It goes away. They go back to the same ENT. They pass the audiogram perfectly. But that's weird because I thought it was broken stereocilia. Now, again, it is possible to break stereocilia, but I haven't seen any evidence that it causes tinnitus. Hearing loss, yes. Tinnitus, no. I haven't seen anything. Nothing. So they go back to the ENTs and they pass the audiogram in flying colors, and the ENT will blame either the machine or they'll blame the patient. Say, "Oh, you didn't do it properly last time." Or maybe it's just an error. No accountability. Nothing. Okay? Next, lack of physiological comprehension. Nearly every single client I've ever had, including myself, has had an experience with one or more ENTs that indicated to them that by the way, this isn't some let's all hate ENTs presentation. It isn't. It's not. There are some great ENTs, maybe even in this room right now. But there is something going on. There is something really, really bad going on. I think it's an education problem. And I think it's just a lack of caring, unfortunately. I really do. I had a client of mine the other day said he went to an ENT, a top ENT in, it was Pennsylvania, America. And the ENT didn't even know what hyperacusis was. Are you joking? Habituation, I'm not, by the way, habituation means, it's basically like this acceptance that your tinnitus will never go away, so learn to live with it, habituate to it. I'm not against habituation, but suggesting that habituation to tinnitus is the only option is pure nonsense. If you use habituation techniques while taking steps to fix tinnitus, eating meat, that is a more sensible move. Use them in tandem. They're not conflicting. It's okay. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. I tried to really condense it down. That's me, by the way, being interviewed on ABC about tinnitus and about a whole bunch of different things as well, and about health and so on and so forth. So there's still more research that must be done, and there's much that needs to be discovered about the brain and tinnitus and the body. And that's great. There should always be more research done. It's never, the science is not settled really in everything. The science is never settled. It can be proven wrong, and there can be better strategies. But fundamentally, what are humans supposed to be eating? It ain't acai bowls on the beach of Bali, okay, while doing yoga. I'm telling you, it's a steak with your mates. So the point is, meat helps. Tinnitus is not for life. My name is Liam Boehm. My company is Silence Tinnitus Now. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone at Carnivore Collective. You can find me online at Liam Stops Tinnitus. Have a great day. Eat meat, and tinnitus is not for life. Bye now.